it's my pleasure, and the reason I didn't introduce her right off the bat is because I knew we were going to hear from her first thing, is Therese Dominguez, who is PHMSA's administrator. And we were lucky enough, she came to Bellingham in August, I think it was, and we got to spend most of the day with her. We walked where the Bellingham tragedy happened, and went out to dinner and spent a lot of time, and pretty impressed with the vision that Ms. Dominguez brings to the agency, and I think that's what she's going to talk about right now as soon as I can find her slides. There they are. Oh, Rudolph. This is not Rudolph. This is Bambi. You notice Bambi here. If anybody looks at our website, when we were set up, the Federal Justice Department compared the Pipeline Safety Trust to the oil and gas industry as Bambi versus Godzilla. That was the federal judge that said that. So we'd take Bambi with us wherever we are, and if any of you industry folks want to get your pictures taken holding Bambi, we'd be glad to do that for you. My apologies. Rudolph's good, though. I kind of like that. Ms. Dominguez.
Thank you, Carl. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to do some logistics here. Carl, can I move this back? And then I can advance?
Yeah, it's up and down.
Great, thank you. Well, I've hit that age where I can't see anything without the omnipresent, and I like the way they call them now readers to kind of make you feel a little bit better. How is everybody? All right. It's a real pleasure for me to be here this morning, and I want to thank Carl and the board of the Pipeline Safety Trust for inviting me to join you all this morning. I did have the chance to get out to Bellingham this summer, and I had a chance to spend some time with Carl and the team in Bellingham, and meet at your offices, go through some of the agenda items that are of concern to the Pipeline Safety Trust. But also had a chance to go down to Whatcom Creek, and I was telling somebody earlier this morning that it brings it all home, because there were a whole bunch of kids enjoying the day, and it was just fantastic. But a reminder of why we're all here. So I also want to thank Carl, because I can't underscore how important it is that we have a diversity of thought and opinion on the work that we do at PHMSA as well, and I really appreciate him taking time to serve as a member of our technical advisory committee, specifically the one on liquid. It really does look at that standard setting process that PHMSA employs, and I know it does take a lot of time. We greatly appreciate your representation and the work that you do on the committee. And also you serve on our Pipelines and Informed Planning Alliance Steering Committee, which is our PIPA program, which really looks at local issues around planning and how to actually inform the public more about the planning process around the infrastructure that goes in and around them. So thank you again to the Pipeline Safety Trust leadership, your board, everybody. You all have an incredibly important voice in safety, and I appreciate all the work that you do. I know our entire agency does. A few things about PHMSA for those that may or may not know a little bit about our agency. We have a very important safety mission. We're one of several modes at the Department of Transportation. The Department of Transportation looks at safety in all modes of transportation. We have specific jurisdiction over hazardous materials in all forms, whether they move by air, rail, land, sea, whatever that is. If you think about it, in the last few weeks alone, you've seen the work that safety does with our, that PHMSA does with our partners across the board, in particular at the FAA, with the recent lithium battery incidents with regard to the Galaxy Samsung 7 phones. So the emergency work that's been done around banning lithium-ion batteries in cargo aircraft, but then also specific to the Galaxy Samsung 7 is the work of our hazardous materials team. We also have very specific jurisdiction over pipeline safety, and that's primarily the lane that we're talking about today. But I wanted to make sure that you knew that across the board, between all of the elements at PHMSA, we look at about 1 million shipments of hazardous materials per day that we help move safely, land, air, and sea. And then we also work specifically on the 2.6 million miles of pipeline that are in this country. And we do that in partnership with the states. The states have a very important regulatory oversight authority as well, but also a certification with PHMSA on how to make sure that those pipelines are running safely. We are about 630-some people. We've grown significantly over the last year. We're based primarily, our headquarters is in Washington, D.C., but we have regional offices around the country, and we have some of our regional representation folks here in the room, some of our leadership, and certainly in our CATS team, and I'll introduce them. But we have an important mission and one that we're very excited about. So one of the things that, that was important, I had a chance to come here last year. I appreciate the invitation to Carl, from Carl. It gave me an incredibly good perspective on pipeline safety issues from the public perspective, but we heard a lot of discussion last year. And some of the specific things that we took away as an agency, I wanted to kind of go through really quickly and tell you where we're at, and then talk a little bit more about what we're doing as an agency in terms of our organization and our structure, and how we're moving forward on our advancing safety mission. And then look to tell you a little bit more about some of the rules that we're undertaking right now. So last year when I was here, we had a pretty robust discussion, and PHMSA committed to about 10 specific actions, and those really focused on that trust factor. We're focused in our new mission area on safety, innovation, and trust. And that trust factor really is about how do we engage the public more, how do we provide some more information and transparency in our operations. So the 3 buckets that we mentioned are enhancing stakeholder engagement in our relationships, educating and informing stakeholders, and again, around transparency. So on the first, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about what we're doing with the stakeholder engagement piece. For those that missed the introductions this morning, a number of our members of our Community Assistant Technical Services team are here. They are really the tentacles of PHMSA in communities around the country. And one of the things that we've done over the course of the last year is restructure our CATS team. There are 10 CATS managers. They report now directly to headquarters, and it is providing us with a level of information consistency, not only in terms of program execution, but also hearing back. What are we hearing from the field? What are we hearing from communities around the country? Where's that thread that we can then work to address more rigorously? We hosted a series of public awareness workshops. And we had one specific one in Chicago. We had great attendance. We had about 80 people participating in person and 1,100 people that came in via webcast. We went through a very robust analysis of the public awareness program and where there's opportunity. We had done an analysis, and we talked about some of the gaps that we found in general and how we can all work together to address some of those issues. We hosted a rulemaking webinars. One of the things that we're trying to do across the board is make sure that there's awareness on our rulemakings, and how can people not only understand the complexity of our rules, but also understand what the theory, idea, thoughts are behind them, so that you're more informed when you actually provide comments, and we encourage people to provide comments. The other thing that we looked at was creating a frequently requested information webpage. Which is really about, it's on our pipeline safety website. It focuses on most in-demand statistics and data downloads to proactively disclose information to the public. We're also expanding on some of our transparency issues. We've posted additional information on enforcement hearing case file materials that are out there, and this is in direct response to two suggestions that we received here at Pipeline Safety Trust. And we added additional case file information to our website. So it really now does contain some substantive operator submissions, including post-hearing briefs and of course the final orders once they've been issued. One of the other things that we're investing in, because I know this is terribly important, is FOIA information. We have a FOIA program. We have a great group of people that are now working on it. We've invested not only in adding people to our team, but also looked in some software that we're now deploying, and it really is to help look at that efficiency record in our production across the board. We've also looked at promoting state transparency improvements, and we do that through our state program evaluations. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, but our public website really is available and putting some more information about what's going on at the state level. And we've also enhanced the pipeline safety web pages across the board so that their content is more rich and it's more transparent, and we hope it's more user-friendly as well. We've also made some changes there. The second bucket is really talking about of recommendations that came out was about how to use technology to increase safety and transparency. So one of the things that we're doing is hosting an research and development forum. And that forum is going to be held November 16th and 17th in Cleveland, Ohio. For those of you that aren't signed up, hurry up. It's going to be very interesting. The forum always allows for public, government, and industry stakeholders to really provide information on where we need to be going, what's the latest and the greatest in research, and I will tell you why that's so much more important, because we've got a framework now at PHMSA that's really going to take that in and use it to better inform our risk management strategies. We've been doing that. We've got an enhanced capability now to do that even at a higher level. So the other thing that I would mention is that we've also got some information on the National Pipeline Mapping System, the public viewer updates. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at that, it's been recently updated, and it's got new interface that allows people to provide information, and it's a little bit more of an intuitive experience for those that are looking at our pipeline mapping system. And lastly, the public viewer iPhone app for the NPMS is going to launch this winter. So you'll be able to, of course, have an app on your phone. So bottom line is, I think across the board, your recommendations have really helped inform our overall process, our outreach improvements, our ability to be more transparent, and we should and really follow through on a number of the commitments that we've made. So I just want to say thank you. I appreciate the partnership. I appreciate the suggestions, and I'm sure coming out of here we'll have even more. So the to-do list may be more significant next year, but we'll make sure that we follow up on it. And now I wanted to tell you a little bit more about PHMSA and our organization and some of the things that we're doing right now in an effort that we call PHMSA 2021. It's something that we've been focusing on internally, but it has a lot of impact externally as well. And I think everybody knows that our safety mission, when I talk about hazardous materials safety and transportation, when you think about the incredible technology development that's gone on in this country, our safety mission and the energy development across this country, our safety mission has expanded considerably. And while the incidents that we manage are low probability events, they really have and can have some significantly high consequences associated with them. So we operate in an incredibly dynamic atmosphere. Everybody does. Literally, technology has changed our lives on a day-to-day basis in ways that are innumerable to mention. And energy is being transported differently, right? It's significantly different than it was 10 years ago. And everything about our domestic energy market is changing. And so the bottom line is, so is PHMSA. Everything's changing, and we're changing as well. These shifts are really demanding that our agency, as a safety oversight agency, become more innovative and forward-looking in everything that we do. And it requires us, this change has really required us to fundamentally rethink how we use data, how we use information and technology, and how we advance and achieve our safety goals across the board. So, recognizing of all of this, we went through a significant transformation. We're in the process of doing that right now. Last fall, we started an organizational assessment, which began and concluded earlier this year. And after analyzing the results, our leadership team looked at how we can best match our expanding mission with our operational and our organizational structure. And we developed PHMSA 2021, a new framework for change. And this really looks at, this is the strategic direction that we undertook. It really looks at the future. So what we captured here was the strategic direction the agency is going in. We want to be more forward-looking, proactive, innovative, data-driven. We are investing in our people and our capabilities across the board. We're focusing on continuous improvement in safety performance, and a large portion of that is a safety management system. Building stakeholder and public trust. Investing in safety, innovation, and technology. Building strong culture and values. And driving efficiency and consistency. These are the organizational and strategic investments that we've been undertaking over the course of the last year, and it's really looking at how we can better anticipate and create solutions for emerging risks that really are crucial to our safety mission. And I think that this gives you the sense of the strategic direction. The way that we captured this is in a larger framework. And what we did was look at what is that vision of the future. And what we came to realize was that we really want to be the most innovative transportation safety organization in the world. No offense, Peter. But to be the hazardous materials experts, to leverage our pipeline and hazardous materials expertise, we want to be that cutting-edge agency that does that. And our mission is to protect people and the environment by advancing the safe transportation of energy and other hazardous materials that are essential in our daily lives. It's not just regulating, it's not just prescriptive, it's really advancing in all the forms that advancing takes, right? Whether that's engagement with the public, transparency, information sharing, performance-based regulations. There are a lot of different ways that the agency can further advance our safety mission. We captured this with the three pillars of all of this are really focused on promoting continuous improvement in our safety performance. So that's our safety pillar, right? This looks at everything from our safety mission and how we actually execute it to the larger SMS system. The middle pillar here is investing in innovation and partnerships, whether that's through R&D, whether that's through any of the work that we do on a public level. This is our core mission on innovation. And then really looking at greater public stakeholder trust. The work that we do, you want to know that the regulator is there, that we've got our eyes on the prize, and that we're really focused on our larger safety mission. And our ability to communicate that work and how we actually do that and engage directly with this spans the gamut, whether it's our oversight entities from the Government Accountability Office to Congress, or to you, the public. We want to make sure that we're having that level of engagement with our stakeholders across the board. And a lot of that comes with the ability to communicate and share information. And then there's two cross-cutting objectives that we have as well, and that's really cultivating organizational excellence in a safety culture and pursuing excellence in our operations. So those are really our organizational and our operational focus areas. Those are really cross-cutting because those are the things that we're focused on across the board, whether it's safety, innovation, or the trust. Those are cross-cutting elements that we execute every day. And all of this is, the bedrock of all of this is what PHMSA has embraced for the last 5 years at least, are our values, which really are our Thrive values. Trust, honesty, respect, integrity, valuing people, and effective communications. So this is our strategic framework for PHMSA. This is what we've been executing on. and something that we think is very important. We've, in order to do all of this, not only did we develop all the new materials, and we got a lot of input from our employees, we did some stakeholder outreach as well, but it really does position the agency, this framework, to really look at how we better capture data, how we do some predictive capabilities and analytics to inform our inspection processes, to make sure that we're improving pipeline safety across the board. We did some organizational changes as well. In order to make all of this happen, we actually had to change our organization, so we put together a proposal based on the information that we'd received and the work that we had done, the analysis that we had conducted. We asked Congress and the administration for a reprogramming request, which is what you need to do if you're actually going to change the organization of a government agency, and they approved it, and we began implementing it this past summer. So I think the critical thing here to focus on is that we streamlined our reporting procedure a little bit, but the most important thing is that we created a couple things. The Office of Planning and Analytics. And that Office of Planning and Analytics is really the office that's going to allow us to look at industry trends. It's going to be able to better leverage data and really be that more forward-looking regulatory entity so that we can take information in, really understand how we're leveraging it. And if you look across here, this is not to be a freestanding organization. It is literally meant to be cross-cutting, to inform all of our safety elements, whether it's our Office of Pipeline Safety, our Office of Hazardous Material Safety, and as well as our operational offices of administration, our HR office, and our Chief Financial Officer. So it's a cross-cutting element that's core to our organization. It's looking at that longer-term strategic priority placement. It's looking at how do we actually make sure that we're taking the resources, the data, the information that we collect, analyzing it, and informing our regulatory structure, helping us prioritize our rulemakings, execution on how we actually do our rulemakings and in what order, because I will tell you that in any given environment, one of the challenges that we have as a regulator is we've got enormous number of recommendations coming in, whether they're mandates from Congress, we've got GAO recommendations, IG recommendations, et cetera. NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board, we need to execute on all of those. But we have a mechanism now. We've got operations in place, we've got governance structures, and we've changed the way that we actually operate as an agency to better address all of the requirements that we have, but also be more predictive. Use the data that we collect to then better inform our risk management strategy. So whether that's a new rule that we need to look at based on an emerging industry trend, or identifying how we actually need to inform our research program. What's that next emerging risk area that we need to address? And that's what this organization is allowing us to do. So one other change that some of you who may know our organization a little bit better, we created an executive director position. And this position is a career senior executive within the government. This is really the consistency and continuity of operations. In lieu of political leadership, there is a career executive here. This follows a model that most other modes of transportation employ, certainly within the department, to have a career executive to provide that level of consistency across all of our operations. The other thing that's really fundamental, for those of you that know, we have invested, we have increased our operation. We have about 125 new people, actually a little bit more, over the 130 plus new people at PHMSA, just over the last year and a half, 2 years. We brought them on board. We've got new people coming in, and the training, making sure that everybody's got all the information that they need, and the ramp up. You can imagine you can't start as a pipeline inspector and be an expert in a year. It actually takes a good deal of investment. So recognizing that we need to not only invest in our people, we also need to invest in our resource capability and really focus on these organizational and operational elements. We've got two, we separated our organization. We wanted to make sure that we had a very robust and independent CFO as well as an HR director. So those are some of the organizational changes that we've undertaken. This really is the step forward as we make sure that we're taking all information and analyzing it, using it to inform our risk management strategy as we develop our regulatory priorities and address safety issues across the board. I will tell you that one of the other things that we've done is we've hired and brought on board, we've got two new excellent people on board, a new chief data officer and a new chief economist. And what we're doing is really leveraging the existing capabilities across the board in our organization to help inform everything that we do. So this really is PHMSA's new operational model. We've implemented it across the board. It's transforming us as an agency, and we're really restructuring to make sure that we get that level of efficiency and consistency across the board in everything that we take on. I think that, let me see here. One of the other things that I wanted to talk about, and I don't have a bunch of slides, I didn't, other people are going to be up here today talking about different areas that PHMSA's been focusing on, but I think something that's very important to discuss is how we actually look at a 21st, PHMSA 2021 in the overall. One of the key things that we're looking at, and this is something the NEB has looked at for a long time, is the safety management systems and how we actually look at an evolution not only for PHMSA but also for the industry to make sure that this larger ability to incorporate safety culture and safety management across the board, whether it's an HR function, a financial function, or anything that the agency is undertaking. One of the things that we're doing is really advancing the implementation of SMS across the board. I really do see it as the next area of continuous safety improvement for all of hazardous materials. The hazardous materials industry across the board has taken this on for years. It's rather new to the pipeline industry, but there's been some robust movement around it. There's been some RP recommended practices from API that came out that really looked, that developed a very good framework for how to put this into place for the industry. I got an update the other day. There's progress that's being made on the industry side. It's a good step forward. But the bottom line is that a management system that integrates modern safety concepts into repeatable, proactive, standard operating procedures is really where we need to go. And regardless of the size of the operator, everybody needs to understand that SMS and that larger safety culture is what needs to be advanced in this industry. It will help us really, not only as a regulator, but for the industry itself, understand where that next threat is. Because if an employee sees something and informs that structure, they're going to be able to actually help identify something before it actually happens. So for PHMSA, one of the things that I talked to the team about, and we all agreed that if we're going to talk the talk, we need to walk the walk, right? If we're going to actually ask others, the regulated industry that we oversee, to take on SMS, that we actually need to take it on ourselves. So next week, PHMSA will be rolling out our new strategic framework for safety management systems. And it's the step forward that our agency is looking to take on how we actually work to adopt a safety management system at a government agency. This is not new. Our brethren within the Department of Transportation, certainly the FAA, have done this for a very long time. They have taken an enormous amount of lessons learned and informed themselves on the risk strategy across the board. So for industry, it really, for us as an agency, let me start there, it really is a new step forward for PHMSA. It really is that pillar of our safety pillar, and one that we're going to be working through. It doesn't happen overnight. It's something that takes a long-term investment to actually come to fruition. For industry, I think this means creating a culture that allows for non-punitive reporting. It means that, like I said, any employee in the process of pipeline safety can actually bring something to the attention of leadership. It takes a great deal of investment by leadership. Craig Pearson, who's here from Marathon, is the leader of the I guess it's the SMS implementation team from API. Marathon has done a really good job of taking all of these elements and putting them together in a very comprehensive way. So there's a level of investment from leadership that has to occur. And you see that in some companies. Not everybody's there. And the challenge is to get everybody there. And so it's a slow evolutionary process, but it can't be that slow. So it's an investment. We need to encourage it and move it forward. So I will cover a couple rules really quickly, and then I'm sure you have some questions. And Carl, I'm probably already over time. In the last year alone, in addition to doing the work that we're taking on internally, we also reauthorized both of our safety programs at PHMSA. So our hazardous materials safety program was reauthorized in the FAST Act last December, and we've executed on that. And our pipeline safety reauthorization bill, the PIPES Act of 2016, was passed by Congress and signed by the President on June 22nd. And the PIPES Act really supports a number of things that are moving forward. I think couple of the key things that are in there is it does acknowledge that first step towards setting up what is really critical in an SMS, which is data sharing, information sharing. And there's a provision in the PIPES Act that calls for the stand-up of a voluntary information sharing system work group. And that work group, we're going to look to constitute a first meeting to help in the design of all of that by December of this year. But this is the first step of what the aviation industry did a while ago, which is basically bring all the players together, right? Industry, regulator, anybody who's got an interest, public, in pipeline safety. And how do we actually take the data that we're collecting and understand where that analyze it and understand where that emerging risk is and line up our resources and investments accordingly. So this is the first step forward. The second is a couple of things from the PIPES Act. The second is really looking at our authorities. One of the things that you just might have recently seen is that the Secretary of Transportation was given emergency order authority to address an emerging safety threat should one occur across the pipeline industry. This is in parity with some of the authorities that we certainly have on the hazmat side, and now we also have on the pipeline side. But we're working really quickly to implement all of the requirements that are on in the new PIPES Act, but I think it was a good step forward on the reauthorization of the program, and I appreciate everybody's help across the board. A few other rulemaking updates. Our hazardous liquid rule, which was very comprehensive, we published the notice of proposed rulemaking last October. We're working to try and conclude that by the end of the year here. We've made progress. That rule really covers looking at implementing robust, mature integrity management programs, improving across the board our hazardous liquid pipelines, and he really does look at some of the effective, addressing some of the effective procedures and that operators can use to better detect and protect high consequence areas where a lot of people live, and looking at other vulnerable areas. Again, we hope to get that out by the end of the year. In April, we published our gas transmission and gathering line rule in the form of an NPRM, and the comment period closed in July. We received thousands of comments. We appreciate everyone's robust turnaround. I know it was a significant investment of time to get things back on the record and comment appropriately. We are considering everyone's comments very carefully. The final rule will really look to address our integrity management principles for gas transmission pipelines, including how operators really look at risk and repair issues. And we're hoping that the very first technical advisory committee meeting on the gas transmission rule will occur in December. We're expecting that this will take a series of public meetings in the technical advisory committee meeting, given the complex nature of this rule. So this will be the first of several that will move forward in December. The rupture detection and valves rule was slated, which is slated to be published in the coming months, focuses on mitigating large and unsafe, uncontrolled releases. That is working towards conclusion. And I hope everyone saw that the excess flow valve rule was published, the final rule was published on October the 14th. And this is really addressing a very significant and outstanding National Transportation Board safety recommendation that's been out there for a long time, but it's the result of several accidents that occurred. And it really looks at installing an all new and renewed gas service lines that are going into single-family structures as well as multi-home dwellings. So it's an important safety measure, one that we're very glad is in final form and out there. The last I'll mention is our OQ rule. The operator qualification was published in July, and we're working to conclude that as well. Just as, sorry, I lied, one more rule. One that I'm actually really excited about, which is, not that I'm not excited about all of our rules, but one that I think of as of particular interest here is the excavation damage final rule, which was published last year. And this rule really looks at establishing the criteria and process for determining the adequacy of a state's excavation damage prevention law. And PHMSA has already audited about 35 states for the program. We're looking for the adequacy of the state program. We'll have audited all the states by the end of this year. We've begun sending out our determination letters to the states, and those that have inadequate determinations will have 30 days to remediate. We're working directly with the states that are found to be inadequate to make sure. The bottom line is we're not saying, hey, bad on you, although that's what the letter says. What we want to do is be able to make sure that we're working with the state to make sure that they're doing everything that they can to address the gaps in the program that we find. The only way that we're actually going to reduce excavation damage is by helping the states who we work with directly to enhance their excavation damage programs, and then in turn communicate all of that, right, through the 811 programs and other safe digging programs that are out there. That couldn't be more important because of the nature of excavation damage. It is the #1 cause of pipeline breaches. So everybody, please, if you're looking at information, look at the state and how they're doing. Recognize that we're working directly to help and reinforce all of the work that they're doing. And I think bringing attention to some of these areas focuses folks in a lot of different positive ways. So the other thing that this law does is also it addresses the gaps in enforcement. And I think that's also an important thing as we look at damaged pipelines. One thing that I will mention is that liquefied natural gas, LNG, is really one of the areas that we're looking at. When you talk about wanting to be more predictive, when you talk about wanting to be more informed and really understand where data in the industry is taking us, LNG is certainly one of those areas that we as an agency are looking at. And we recognize that the majority of LNG facilities in service today were constructed in the 1970s. And the modern LNG market is evolving because we've got so much natural gas in this country that's being produced. With stricter emissions, regulations, new technologies, and new applications for the use of LNG, we're trying to make sure that, and PHMSA 2021 is actually a great area for us to say, okay, we've got a lot of data out there, we need to update our regulations. We're in the process of doing that, but having those regulations as informed by market trends analysis and data is what we're really looking at. So we held our first public meeting on small-scale LNG facilities. We did that last May. A number of folks attended. It was very well attended. We got a lot of really good information. And the goal was really to solicit input and obtain background and information on the formulation of where we need to go with our regulatory strategy. So I appreciate everybody's participation. You're going to, I think, more and more that is the format that we'll be taking, not just to collect information in the form of a workshop, but then do some additional data gathering. For those of you that followed some of the concerns that came out of Aliso Canyon, which was a methane release that occurred in Southern California, started last fall. Aliso Canyon was really a wake-up call, I think, across the board for underground natural gas storage. These are geologic formations that have occurred all across the country for years. They've been used first sometimes as water reservoirs, salt domes, et cetera. A lot of them have been converted to oil and gas storage over the years. But the bottom line is that after Aliso Canyon, the White House convened a task force. It was co-chaired by PHMSA and the Department of Energy. Earlier this week, we came out with the findings of our task force. There were about 44 recommendations across the board about how we can look at everything from well reliability to make sure that we focus on energy reliability, because underground natural gas storage is really used to make sure that communities have and operators have storage to use at peak times. So whether that's the hottest day in the summer and making sure that your home is cooled, or the coolest night in the winter and making sure that you have heat, underground storage is really that capacity. But we've got aging infrastructure out there, so how do we make sure that we're keeping those wells as safe as they possibly can be? That report came out at the end of this year, and this week, and we've got some more work to do on it moving forward. But that gives you a pretty good comprehensive sense of where we're at with PHMSA across the board, whether it be rulemaking or some of the other work that we're undertaking. I think I've shared a good deal of information with you about what we're doing as an agency, how we're organizing ourselves. We've certainly been very busy, and we're really vigilant. This investment that we're making in the agency, we are vigilant about our new approach and our new strategy. And PHMSA 2021 is really about predicting, it's about preparing and regulating the safety of pipelines and other hazardous materials and transportation, not just for today, but really for tomorrow. So we have an opportunity to do all this work together. I appreciate the opportunity to collaborate, and I thank you all very, very much. I would be really remiss, Carl, one second, if I didn't take a moment to thank the incredible members of Team PHMSA that are here. Coming into the agency about a year and a half ago, one of the things that really took me by surprise, not surprise, but it just gripped my heart, literally, was the level of commitment, passion across the board. We have great people. They're not all here. Some of them are caught on flights. But by the representation that we have, those of you, I know Carl asked earlier, but we've got some great people. Teresa Gonzalez, our chief counsel, is here. Vasiliki Siganos, our deputy, go ahead, stand up, because everybody's going to be presenting. The deputy chief counsel, Vasiliki Siganos, and of course, Alan Mayberry, who has stepped up as our acting associate administrator for pipeline safety, really done a fantastic job. And we've got some other leadership in the room. Chris Hoydell, our Western Regional Director. I don't know if Christy Murray, no? Okay. And all of our CATS managers. These are really can you guys stand up, the CATS folks? These people, if you don't know them, Karen Lynch and all these folks in the background. We're here because of the work that they do out in the communities, and if you don't know them, please take the time over the course of this convention over this meeting over the course of the next 2 days to get to know them. These folks are our liaisons to the communities, and your information, how we develop relationships with you all is critical to all that. So my thanks to our liaisons. Thank you all. We're here because of you all, and we appreciate all the engagements. These really are the 3 pillars of safety, innovation, and trust that PHMSA is embracing moving forward. So thank you all.
Thank you. One more hand for Marie Therese. We're out of time, so we're going to move on.